Well, considering how popular the first video I did on Attack on Titan's anime original ending was, I figured I would make a follow-up video kind of going over some other subjects that were brought up since the airing of the final episode of the final season part 2. And that specifically has to do with a flashback segment that was shown within the episode. Which also brings up another thing that had been discussed previously before this episode aired. Now, the flashback in question is actually the flashback to the very first episode of Attack on Titan, specifically the scene where Eren witnesses his mother Carla being eaten by, as we now know, Dina Fritz's Titan. If you have seen this episode, you know that the flashback scene is very different from the one we've seen in the first episode, and that's because it was completely redrawn and somewhat, I guess, reanimated in a way. It was done in a somewhat different art style that some might argue might be closer to the manga, and doesn't really look. Of course, it's not the Wit Studios episode, that they used here, which is very questionable because, as we know, Mappa, most of the time when they flash back to things from previous seasons, they usually use the Wit Studios animation if it's a scene that we've already seen. However, if it's a new scene, they do, they do the scene with their, in their own animation and their own art style that's more reflective of the art style of the final season. However, this was, again, something that they could have easily used the Wit Studios animation, but they decided not to. Instead, they completely redid this scene. And the art style, first of all, is pretty different. But if you notice Eren, when they briefly show him, the color of the jacket he's wearing is also different. I didn't think about this, honestly, and I feel like a lot of people probably didn't think about this either, but if you remember, the color of Kid Eren's jacket in the first episode of Attack on Titan is actually brown, whereas in this scene it's black. I believe it is also black in the manga, so this is a very interesting difference that people have been pointing out. And this kind of goes back to something else I would also like to bring up, this video is also about and kind of relates back to. But I'd also like to point out, and which other people have also pointed out as well, the way that Eren's mother is eaten is also very different. As opposed to Dina just bringing Carla up to her mouth and eating her like she does in the first episode, it looks as if Dina instead tosses Carla into her mouth, which I'm kind of wondering why this was done. This is something that's kind of debatable if it actually does happen this way in the manga. The way that Dina eats Carla, from what I've seen, it's kind of difficult to make out because it looks like a far away shot, and it's very hard to decipher. It's very hard to tell how Carla is eaten here. So it's really hard to say if this is supposed to be a more manga accurate representation of that scene. However, going back to the black shirt that Kid Eren is wearing, we also have seen instances where there are these flashbacks where we see child Mikasa wearing a black scarf. And we know from, I suppose from maybe color pages in the manga, as well as maybe interviews where Isayama might have stated as much, that Mikasa's scarf in the manga is actually canonically black, whereas in the anime we know that Mikasa's scarf is red. This is another change, that they did in the anime, and it is it kind of has me scratching my head a little bit as to, there are times where anime adaptations might change the colors of certain things, and it might not hold any real significance. However, when you think about these things in combination with one another, Eren's black shirt as a child, him wearing a black shirt or his black jacket, I should say, instead of a brown jacket, Mikasa wearing a black scarf instead of a red scarf, it all kind of, as well as the redone scene from the very first episode, it all kind of combines to form something that it's very much goes beyond just an artistic or change. It feels like it is much more intentional. Like there's something that the anime might be trying to tell us. Now, what I believe is that these, considering what I've stated already, that in the manga there are color differences here that were changed in the anime, and that when we see some of these flashbacks, such as the flashback we saw in the final episode with Eren wearing a black jacket, and the flashback we've seen when we see the paths for the first time, where we briefly see Mikasa wearing a black scarf instead of a red one, I believe that the anime is trying to tell us these are flashbacks specifically to another timeline, specifically the manga timeline. Because as I've stated before, I do believe there are multiple timelines in Attack on Titan, and I honestly believe that that is what these changes are trying to suggest. And by extension, also trying to suggest we are in a different timeline from the timelines that we are briefly being shown. There have been arguments against the Mikasa black scarf theory, such as people saying that when we were seeing the trailer and when the episode where this scene was featured came out, that this was just a filter being used, and that the scarf was not actually supposed to appear black. There have been a lot of people who have refuted this claim, and I honestly can't say one way or another. But after having seen the last episode where we did specifically see Eren wearing a black jacket, I feel like the scarf was definitely intended to be black if we kind of take this scene into consideration. Because why then was Eren's jacket color changed? If Eren's jacket color was changed, then why wouldn't they also change the color of Mikasa's scarf? If you think about it this way, then it really kind of refutes the claim that it's just a filter being used, because I really don't think it was just a filter being used when we were seeing the flashback of Eren's mother being eaten in the final episode. This is actually a pretty big hint in this episode that I feel like a lot of people just kind of ignored or glossed over when the actual episode came out. Now, I have seen a lot of the AOE theory channels actually pick up on this and talk about this, which is actually why I started to look back at it and think about it much more than I probably would have otherwise. I'll be honest, if not for some of these channels talking about the anime original ending, I really wouldn't have given much thought to this scene. But after people have pointed this out, it really made me think back to the anime original ending and the multiple timelines theory. And really, if you think about it, this is the only explanation that makes sense. It's really hard for me to believe that there's all these little hints that have been strewn around, especially in the final season, that are just, that they're just here and there's no other reason for them. Maybe, oh yeah, there are just artistic choices and nothing more. It's hard for me to believe that. I really believe that there is more significance to them than that. I think that they're trying to hint at something. My only assumption would be that there is going to be a different ending because it's a different timeline. Every time I start kind of doubting myself and thinking that the anime is going to end the same way as the manga, I always just think back to Isayama's other inspirations, such as Muv Love, which was really, I guess, the main inspiration for Attack on Titan. And if you think about all the things that Isayama has kind of taken from Muv Love and put into Attack on Titan, why would he not take one of the main elements of Muv Love Alternative, such as, the different ending and the different timelines? I think Isayama is definitely going to take this element from Muv Love and use it with Attack on Titan. And I think that's why we can believe there will most likely be an anime original ending. I'm really just here to provide, I guess, you guys with some more hopium who might be doubting that this is going to happen. Don't lose hope yet. I think there's very much a good reason as to why we're having to wait so long to get the actual ending. I really do believe that it's hopefully at least going to be very different from what we've seen in the manga. But anyways, that's really all I had to discuss in this video. It's definitely a shorter video from last time because in the last video, I kind of went over a few different anime original ending theories. I felt like I would just kind of make this one because I did feel like it was kind of worth talking about. And it doesn't really seem like it's something that significant at first, but I think, you know, people will just look at it and be like, well, it's just a color difference. What's the big deal? But when you think about it some more and you think about this was the color it was in the manga, it makes you start to ask much more questions. And not to mention this also combined with them changing the scene of Eren seeing his mother being eaten in the last episode. It all just, like I've mentioned before, you just think about all that together and it just starts to paint a much bigger picture as to why this might be being shown, I guess, in the anime. But again, let me know what you guys think. If you guys want me to make another video about some other theories that have been brought up before, I might do it. But like, I really just wanted to make this one because, like I said, it was something I felt like that was worth talking about. And I wanted to know what everybody thinks about this idea. So let me know in the comments. And until next time, I will see you all later.